So, what has Varun not ever spoken about on the internet?
पठान
कैसे लिखी पठान?
बहुत सही लगा.
You can speak Hindi properly, full Hindi.
बॉम्बे हिंदी.
बॉम्बे हिंदी.
तो बॉम्बे वाला हिंदी निकल जाता है. So I mean पठान proper theater whistle.
अरे बढ़िया.
I can't whistle but surrounding में whistle ऊ आ के साथ.
Have you gotten that you look like Hrithik?
Yes.
Yeah. How much are you
So
on board
I
with that?
blame one person who started this. School Hindi was never Hindi because you never talk the way those textbooks were.
Yeah.
But watching Bollywood movies for me.
संक्षिप्त रूप में समझाइए कि आप क्या
Who
कहना
says
चाह रहे
है
हैं.
at the end of every sentence, right? है तो बोलते नहीं कोई. मैंने ये किया है कोई नहीं बोलता. So you just stop it. मैंने ये किया, मैंने ये किया है. है कोई नहीं. Like which is the last Salman movie I really enjoyed, and I was thinking about the other day. Whiskey called Kuch Nahi.
Okay.
Which is the actual Scottish Scotch whiskey. Now for me, I'm like, I've still been trying to track who must have bought
Yeah.
a Scottish whiskey distillery and come out with my bet is that it was a Punjabi person. Actually went through a rebranding exercise, which is why they're so prevalent. So I was on holiday in Spain and I'm walking by a storefront and I see this watch in the storefront. I'm like, okay, let me go buy it and walk in. I walk inside, there is a song from Happy New Year playing.
The Hindi
wala
Bollywood
Happy
movie
New Year.
Happy New Year.
हाँ.
अच्छा, interesting.
One Desi uncle walks and saying, Indian. I'm like, हाँ, आप कहाँ से हो? मैं बॉम्बे से हूँ, मैं भी बॉम्बे से हूँ. I have a problem of eating chicky. I will keep buying different kinds of chicky of Dunzo and Swiggy and I would eat it. Like fried rice came out of leftovers in America. You know, everything you do, we all, how is it going to help my career? How is it going to help my...
Okay.
So
thank you for bringing
not
this
everything
up.
you enjoy has to be monetized.
Exactly.
You know when you have a marriage and a partnership is when you can enjoy being silent in the room together. Ordinary is not a bad thing. I've said this, I think, before.
Welcome to the Chillar episode, guys. Today we have a creator, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, an author, a husband, a human being, and whatnot. Welcome to the show, Varun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So we were speaking about the podcast setup and stuff like that, and we were speaking about people being exactly the same on camera versus off camera.
Yeah.
Are you the same person on camera and off camera?
I'm a lot calmer on camera.
Yeah.
I am normally not as calm a person. I am actually very chaotic as a person. I have
very different opinions. Anyway.
If you see my desk at any point of time, there are like 50 things thrown over there.
Yeah.
Like today morning, I was working on something for what me and my wife Pooja are building as a company, and literally there's like one laptop, one scribble pad. There were pages lying around. There was stuff thrown around, and I'm going across. I also speak much faster.
Yeah. This is on camera or off camera?
Off camera, I speak much faster because and that was always
assume there's no camera here. How would you speak?
So I'd be like, what I'm actually building is that. So that's the general pace, right?
Yeah.
And when I think one of the first decisions when even the thought of being a podcaster came, saying, can I talk slower so people can understand me?
Yeah.
It was a standing joke when I was in college was that in Varun's presentations you need subtitles because half the time you don't know what he's saying. He's just mumbling.
That's exactly what happened with me when. Sorry to cut you there.
No.
So. Remember that first time जब reels आया था and उस समय 15 seconds हुआ करता था just and you had to make a point in those 15 seconds only and I used to be very fast as if the video is played at 2x and I used to get comments like your alternate career could have been a rapper and stuff like that and I'm like guys it's just
that is not a bad alternate career to have.
Yeah,
not at all. If you talk to most rappers, I'm like I just feel that being a rapper is almost like being a poet who has really figured the commercial side of things as a musician. So I always had deep admiration for people who rap.
Can you rap?
Not at all. Haven't even tried. Don't even want to. So I'm a huge music buff, but I have never tried to actually learn anything. No instrument, no vocal cord training, nothing. Just enjoy listening to music.
Interesting. You do watch Bollywood movies?
Lots. Huge buff.
Which one did you watch recently?
I saw Pathaan.
कैसे लिखी पठान?
बहुत सही लगा.
You can speak Hindi properly? Full Hindi?
बॉम्बे हिंदी.
बॉम्बे हिंदी.
तो बॉम्बे वाला हिंदी निकल जाता है. So I mean, Pathaan proper theater whistle.
अरे बढ़िया.
I can't whistle, but surrounding में whistle. Ooh ah के साथ. And then I watched it again on OTT when it came out on OTT
you did?
as well. Yeah, I watched. I actually
did you
wanted
like
to watch
it that much, or just wanted to do
fun movie to watch.
Entertaining? Yeah.
I've realized that with the good part about watching some of these movies on OTT, the good part about watching some of these movies on OTT is that you can fast forward the bits which you found boring when you saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
And there are some scenes you just want to watch for fun. Like you want to watch that, like Salman Shah Rukh scenes. You want to watch
epic scene.
Yeah, you want to see that. You want to see some of those like initial like Shah Rukh entry wala scenes. So I just literally went through all the scenes I wanted to see.
I've realized I can't watch songs when I'm watching the movies on OTT. Yeah. Like जो song shoot हो रहा है movie में. I can't. I'm like, ये क्या देखना है? इसको skip करते हैं ना. Like, let's just skip to the dialogue.
It's like you watch War on OTT. You're fast forwarding wherever Hrithik Roshan is not there. No offense to Tiger Shroff, but there was. I think that.
Have you gotten that you look like Hrithik?
Yes.
Yeah. How much are you on board
I
with
blame one person who started this.
Mr. Manish Pandey?
Mr. Manish Pandey.
Absolutely.
Manish Pandey on
Twitter.
is the
judge of this, and I'll make sure that Manish Bhai, this clip
Manish Bhai has started this. And then what ended up happening, how it came back to me was it started as Manish saying, "Arey Hrithik Roshan," and he kept tagging Hrithik on tweets.
Yeah.
And at some point in a comment, someone called me Sasta Hrithik. And I'm like, ठीक है यार, मतलब some version of Hrithik at least you're saying, but I'm just manifesting that, eventually this leads to me getting him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Which will be the most fun to do.
Manifesting for you.
Yeah, I'm manifesting that out there to see, get Hrithik on the podcast, and I can talk about this fact that.
Yeah.
But yeah, similar. But you cannot not look at Hrithik when he's on screen, especially in War.
Of course,
it was like, I mean, I say that if Ashutosh Rana in that movie when Hrithik gets off the chopper is literally all our faces.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the earliest memory I have of Hrithik Roshan is that wo and then I remember, my cousin, elder brother used to we used to live. So I'm from Calcutta. I'm not from Bombay. And he used to teach me that step, and he used to do it really well. So I was like, bhai sikha de yaar, please sikha de. And he used to teach me, and I'm a pathetic dancer. Like I can just barely move. Like I used to do the Visarjan dance the best. And he used to teach me that. That's the earliest memory I have of Hrithik Roshan, where Kauna Pyar Hai and all of these movies. So I've really, even I'm manifesting him on the show. So whenever you get a chance,
done. The connection.
I'm just like ek gali chhod ke,
just like one ek gali chhod ke, correct. But Bollywood's always been I actually learnt Hindi through Bollywood because I grew up coastal town Andhra Pradesh, so Telugu's mother tongue, English was largely what was spoken. Hindi was what I learnt initially through either. So school Hindi was never Hindi because you never talk the way those textbooks were.
Yeah.
But watching Bollywood movies for
संक्षिप्त रूप में समझाइए कि आप क्या कहना चाह रहे हैं.
At the end of every sentence, right? है तो बोलते नहीं कोई. मैंने ये किया है कोई नहीं बोलता. So you just stop it. मैंने ये किया, मैंने ये किया है. है कोई नहीं बोलता. So it was that.
It's weird. Why
every sentence है?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I'm watching Bollywood, and weirdly for me, my introduction to Hindi movies was Mithun movies.
Okay.
In the early 80s, so like your Disco Dancer and Dance and
lovely.
All of those. So and then graduated from him to Amitabh Bachchan, which everybody did.
Of course.
And then went on that thread with Shah Rukh and everybody else. But I'm a proper commercial Hindi movie watcher. I'm not. I've occasionally will watch something that is off the commercial track, but largely for me it's like an out and out commercial single screen. Because I also grew up with that. For me, when I grew up in a smaller town, the experience of watching a movie is entirely in that theater with that sound, with those who's and ahs, and so for me that's like real fun in the theater. And so I gravitate towards as commercial as possible.
अरे मजा आता है बहुत. I to find it very entertaining when you watch a movie in theaters versus of course
community feeling आता है ना साथ में कर रहे हैं.
And more so if you're watching like a Salman Khan film, the vibe of it.
Although the fun has gone away, I feel.
Yeah. I
think there's a point. There was peak Salman, and then there is now. I feel he's sounding a little tired. Like,
have you seen his new movie's trailer?
किसी का भाई.
Oh yes. Yesterday I heard
that is my
somebody.
point. My point is that at some point I feel there is autopilot, right? And I feel that at some point he's gone into such autopilot, and Like, which is the last Salman movie I really enjoyed, and I was thinking about the other day because
Wow,
we were all talking about this. Is that
it's a good question.
I don't know if I enjoyed a movie of his after Sultan. Maybe not even
Sultan.
Tiger 2. I think Tiger 2 also he felt like he was in auto mode.
Yeah.
But I think Sultan I really enjoyed.
I think his previous movies are fantastic. Like his earlier movies.
Even Bajrangi Bhaijaan was nice.
Yeah, Bajrangi Bhaijaan, I loved it.
But then after that, he suddenly got into this zone of like. Race 3 for me is an unintentional comedy.
Yeah.
Like Race 3 is so funny, it's not.
It's funny when Salman Khan enters and decides to do Race 3
Yeah.
and removes the entire cast and then removes the entire dance choreography and something.
Yeah.
And
spoiler alert: Bipasha dies in the beginning or Saab dies in the beginning. I forgot. But yeah, it's just like, and since then it's just been this weird. Like I understand, I'm looking forward to Tiger, the next Tiger. I'm hoping it kind of brings some story back and brings some of those back. But Shah Rukh Khan coming back, that's like been the best thing. Like
who do you admire or say like in terms of Bollywood actors, or who do you look up to or idolize or whatever?
So you look at people for different things.
Yeah, makes sense.
For me, just for having just general depth and clarity of thought and the way to speak is Shah Rukh Khan, because I think the way he can articulate himself.
Yeah.
And I think he has general range and like, just, say how he looks at his emotions, how he looks at people, everything else. General EQ is very high.
Yeah.
For sheer presence, because I have felt that presence, is the first time you meet Amitabh Bachchan. And I remember I was very early in my Channel V days, not even MTV. This is post my MTV Channel V days, when we had to do an interview with him and we were in his office and you entered the room and you could sense they were like, in my head, they were like smoke machines were going off, lights were going off. Like, because there is genuine presence. Like there are only two people I've seen who have that presence when they walk in. It's Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan. When they walk into a room, you feel
the energy and
yeah. So I think there's genuine presence there. I also really admire a bunch of people who work behind the camera. I mean, for me, because I also come from a production background, for me, I have deep admiration for people who like really written stuff and really worked on stuff behind the camera. So I'll always look forward to, let's say, I mean, for me, there was an Anurag Kashyap phase, but I feel that I've always had this real fascination for anyone who does comedy really well.
Yeah.
I'm actually very fascinated by Rohit Shetty's system.
Okay.
Because he once spoke about this in an interview about saying how the day before they shoot anything, the entire crew together just does the entire shoot, and that becomes almost like a storyboard. Like do almost a quick run through of what they're doing the next day. But the crew acts as and I don't know if he still does it, but he spoke about this a while back. And I'm like, that's such an interesting process. You are not storyboarding, you're literally just running through everything. So this is the flow.
Yeah, this is the flow.
So the crew knows the flow of things when you get into it the next day. So I found that to be. So I'll always pick like one thing from everyone which I've really learned from. From a writer standpoint though, I'm like, that's like a long list. But there are too many writers I admire.
Go for it. Name a few. Say one or two.
You cannot not start with Salim Javed.
Yes.
The OGs of any form of masala action blockbuster cinema. And for me that starts there, and I kind of go back to like, if you read the book on Sholay that Anupama Chopra wrote.
I have not read yet.
It's a fabulous story of how that movie even got made. How, that was a time when writers were superstars. Like you would say it's a Salim Javed film because they wrote it. The director's name would come after, actor's name would come after. And they built that level of this thing. I also like, there is something to that, how do I put this in a better light? There was a genre of cinema, right, which was your Amar Akbar Anthony and Yadon Ki Barat and also that genre for me like was great. I also deeply admire, for all the wrong reasons, Abbas Mastan for the way they write their films. Malab template is that like every 10 minutes there is one twist, you know it's coming, you are waiting for it, you are still excited by it. I've seen them direct once, and for me it was just interesting. They're really sweet, soft-spoken men in full white.
Are you inspired by them when you wear white?
No, I just like wearing white. I just realized that. So I used to have for the longest time I used to be worried to wear white because I was worried I'll get some form stain on it.
Yeah.
Till a point of time I said, I think a year, 2 years ago, I said, let me just try wearing white. And once I start wearing it, I just enjoy it. So even if I'm out there and I've gotten sweaty like I did today coming here, I'm like, I'll wear it. Like on movies like Manmohan Desai films or.
Yeah.
But if I think more recently, in recent times, I've really enjoyed, what Hussein Dalal writes. Right? For instance, I just genuinely enjoy how he writes in terms of everything from dialogue to. I think both him and his brother have a very interesting way to get the real like grittiness of things out there. I really enjoy actually, I enjoy more of the series writers now than I do.
Yeah.
So I love how Dhruv Sehgal writes. I think Sehgal's got a great way to get relationships together.
I've got this. Like people tell you look like Hrithik. I've gotten that I look like Dhruv for some reason. I don't know why. And there are so many people.
Yeah. You should get him on a pod. Be fun.
Yeah. We'll definitely get him on the pod, and this will be my first question to him because I've gotten this so much. Because I've gotten this so much, then people give me little things reference, and I'm like, and then they ask me who's your Mithila, and I'm like, this comes out of nowhere.
Dhruv will be the only person you will have as a guest. I think there might be some others, but the only one I've seen who will brew his own coffee and bring it to a recording.
Yeah.
He will drink it. He came, when he came on Take a Pause, he came with his own coffee, came inside there, and I was like, because he likes to make it. He's the one who got me into coffee. Okay. So he and I did like an episode which was online recorded sometime 2020 for Advertising is Dead. And then he and I were just chatting, and we were talking about it because he mentioned he enjoys coffee. So I just asked him some questions. So he's got such deep knowledge of like the kind of
how the coffee is,
the brews to get, from which roasteries to get stuff. So yeah, I went down the rabbit hole with him. And even when he came on the pod, he came with his coffee.
Interesting.
Like,
we'll get him on the pod for sure.
Yeah, his coffee knowledge is next level.
Fantastic. Varun, you've spoken. You yourself run multiple podcasts. You're a creator yourself, and you put yourself out on the internet almost on a daily basis. Yeah. And you've gotten guests on the show, and you yourself have been a guest like this podcast. What are some of the things that you've not spoken about before? Because if I'm getting Varun Dugirala on the show, then I don't want people to expect the same old things that he's spoken about before. Yeah. I want to bring a different side of Varun where I know that, okay, if people are watching the Chillar with Deepak, then I want a different tinge of it.
Yeah.
So, what has Varun not ever spoken about on the internet? Or maybe wants to discuss or put it out there?
So, one thing which I haven't spoken about enough is I'm known as a very curious person. I'm genuinely very curious about most things. But what ends up happening on podcasts is you choose a certain track, right? So, okay, I'm going to be talking about, let's say, how you can better yourself as a human being, focus on business, everything else. But what I am curious about is so wide-ranging that everything from like I'm very curious about... Shall I stop? Chalega?
I don't think capture
hoga. Chalega?
Yeah, go on.
I just thought.
Yeah, of course. I really
old habit.
Yeah, of course.
So what I'm really curious about is everything from I'm fascinated by watches and how they work, right? Mechanical watches, automatic watches, just different kinds. I look, and I won't just look at the watch. I look at the story behind that watch. Okay, what is it referenced by? How was it? What is the oldest form of that? I'm eternally fascinated by anything which is, let's say, to do with, and not tech for tech's sake, but is there a story behind it, right? Is there, like, in this movie, this person wore this watch, so that's a fun. How did it actually become part of the story?
Interesting.
Or I will look at things in tech which are like more random gadgets that become part of this thing. So things generally fascinate me. So I'm very fascinated by random things, everything from trivia to like watches to tech to. I still have a problem with headphones. I was obsessive with headphones. Now, but not as much. But I am generally, most things you can think of, I will have some form of curiosity towards it. But that becomes too wide ranging.
Yeah.
Like I can sit and talk to you about alcohol for like hours. Right?
Okay.
Because I genuinely have like, okay, how does this function? Like, how are these connected? How did this become popular? Or how did this become a drink? So anything even around like fashion and lifestyle, and so I read a lot, but what I read and consume isn't necessarily only on what I do. So I am like I like reading as much about the business of fashion and the history of it as I do like reading about general business and venture capital.
Is this habit a very recent habit, or this habit of one that you've say you've had from a very long time?
No,
The
I've
habit of
always
reading or
been.
curiosity?
So I've always been a curious person.
Okay.
Like I was that kid who would come and ask you questions with
Like
zero,
why?
like
क्यों हो रहा है ये क्यों
I'm
हो
always
रहा
that
है?
why person. Like
Yeah.
as a kid, my dad was a doc, and I would want to see how operations work. And so in operations which is not invasive and the patient didn't have an issue, my dad would ask them. He said, "Okay, my son comes and watches." He would never tell them how old I was, and I was like 8, 9,
Yeah.
or 10,
Yeah.
whatever. So I would go, I'd take a stool, I'd put it there, I'd wear the thing with the mask, and I would stand and I would watch. They say, okay, but they didn't know how old I was. I'd be like 8, 9, 10, whatever. So I would put on everything sterilized, get on a stool and watch. And I watched till the time I once fainted because there was blood suddenly, and I think I fainted. Never went back in. But I was curious about that. Like I will meet
You
someone.
were inside the OT?
I was inside the OT. Like the body's right here. I'm like, I'm watching. My dad is a surgeon, so I was watching him do surgery. So I should be very fascinated. How does it look inside? I'd go back to school and tell you this is what I saw. And I would ask questions. I would ask questions people wouldn't ask.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, anybody does something different. Like I remember, like as an early 12-year-old or whatever, my uncle came down. Uncle worked in Silicon Valley, and I was asking questions about how things work there and stuff like that. At some point, I would say late teens, early 20s, I became a little bit more self-conscious. So this whole concept, right? Are you driven by curiosity? Are you driven by fear? And I feel that when I was much younger, I was only driven by curiosity. I was curious about every single thing in the world. And then at some point, the fear of judgment kind of came in, and then I started to really not ask people things.
When did this come in?
18-ish, 17, 18, I moved to Bangalore from Kakinada, where I grew up. Suddenly go to a big city, people have more experiences than you. Like, okay, 1 second, I had to go kind of take a step back and guard myself. And so that continued till I eventually went to Pune to do my mass comm years later, almost 6-7 years later. And that's when I got back into it. And luckily then I joined MTV and as an intern, and then went back there to work, and in that period as well, because they were open to you being any kind of person you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so that gave me an opportunity to really kind of dig into stuff I was curious about. So you could also and all the shows were that, right? You were curious about random things. You could have fun with it. You could work on scripts. They let me work in every single department when I was working there. So I've always been curious, but I feel I've gone through periods where, and it even happened recently, right? I think after we started Glitch, after the first 5-6 years, when the company had become a sizable size, in my head, I'm like, now I have to be older, be more responsible. Let's not do this time pass stuff. And so became more on that, and then somehow becoming a creator again opened that up. About four odd years ago. So you got to find ways to open yourself up. Weirdly enough, I once hosted a podcast for about 8-12 episodes of that, which eventually became Take a Pause, but originally called Useless Information.
Yeah.
Because I believe we all have so much useless information within us. So I would just randomly message 8 people I knew, and I said, can we just talk for an hour about stuff you never got to talk about, like you said, which is just randomly, which people call useless. Right? So, and everybody had such fascinating things to talk about, which they would never get asked. Someone spoke about paparazzi, someone else spoke about cricket, someone spoke about love for movie background scores. And it's just fun to talk, because we're all fascinated by these things.
Of course.
We never talk about them.
Yeah.
We're like, alright, but it seems very random to talk about. I'm like, talk about it. And you don't know where you make friends with it.
Yeah.
I met someone the other day for a meeting, and I just randomly happened to mention watches. Because that's my reason. My present rabbit hole in life is watches.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was like, yeah, I also love them too. And I will start talking about them. And it became this interesting way to kind of bond.
It happens, right? So when you just randomly start talking about, and I think great conversations happen over common interests.
Yeah.
And when I say that, you're also a speaker, I'm also a speaker, and we've been at colleges and institutes and events and corporate talks, and we realize that there is so much that we can talk about, about your first event and how did it go. So even for me, when I fantasize cricket, I just eat, sleep. I'll watch a 5-day test match properly, sit in front of the TV and हाँ चलो अभी ये ऐसे ball किया. So and I feel great conversations stem from common shared interests. So you can go on and on about that particular topic with that person, and then you realize what did we start with. And it's just fantastic.
It's about the gaps, right? When you go in, even for a professional meeting. You go and saying, this is the agenda, we'll only talk about the agenda. But there's moments in between when there are gaps, there are when there are pauses, and like people are when they say, okay, what did you do this weekend, or like how was the weather? If you have something interesting to share instead of those, or you might have something very interesting to share about the weather, you don't know.
You never know,
That suddenly changes the dynamic, it changes the equation. It's so much fun. Like the other day and because I generally, to a very few people, talk about stuff like just alcohol and like, and for me, it's never been about, okay, I want to drink alcohol, get drunk. It's always been like, I'm fascinated by just generally like the different ways in which it is made.
Share a trivia.
Just
share some trivia about alcohol.
So I actually, one of my first jobs was to work for Jack Daniel's whiskey. I worked as a promoter.
Okay.
So in Bangalore, I would go to bars. I would work in a bar. I mean, they would shift me from bar to bar, but I would say every 3-4 weeks or so, I would be in one bar. And anybody who comes in, I would roll dice. I'll give them 2 dice to roll. And if they get a 3, 4 or a 7, they would win some, like, win a t-shirt, win a pen, etc. But the whole point of us joining was the fact that we were given a test, which they would do every 3 months. On any questions people might ask you about the alcohol. And so the common perception is that Jack Daniel's is a bourbon whiskey.
Okay.
But it's not. It's Tennessee whiskey. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Right? The way it's made is totally different. It's like, and sometimes fascinating things like, there's a whiskey called Kuch Nahi.
Okay.
Which is the actual Scottish Scotch whiskey. Now for me, I'm like, I've still been trying to track who must have bought a Scottish whiskey distillery and come out with my bet is that it was a Punjabi person. I'm not stereotyping, but I'm like, because बोलते हैं ना कि क्या पियोगे कुछ नहीं. So I'm like, it must be that in my head. I'm like, it has to be someone from the north, cannot be someone from the south. So I went Punjabi, but maybe I'm stereotyping here. But and then I was reading this book called Drunk.
Okay.
And I just came across it. It's the history of how alcohol became so prevalent.
Okay.
And alcohol was actually made as a community device, in the sense that how do you bring people together? Is that you would have a central part of every town, village, etc., where people would come together and drink. So when you drink, you're also slightly more loosened up. So you would talk to each other. You would become friends, and you would all become a joint unit. And it was almost a way for people who were, almost like ruling kingdoms to bring their citizens together in a common shared activity, which was to drink alcohol. And
this was when? This was in which era?
Like way back. This is way back. I think like medieval times.
Okay.
So from that
way
time.
back,
And how they would generally make it, and it could even be before that, if I remember right. And even the other thing, right, is that there's been scientific studies in the fact that, because people say, no, I become more creative when I have a drink. So there is scientific studies. It's still not been proven that some things to disprove it, some things that prove it, is that there is an optimum number of drinks you can have which actually drive like cognitive function.
Is it?
Yeah, but it's like, again, very subjective. I don't.
Yeah.
There've been too many but I think it basically says that the 2 smalls of any harder liquor is what gives you to that point. But it's very subjective.
Okay.
But the most interesting part about that is that as they progress, you realize that humans started to drink alone. And alcohol is generally a depressant.
Yeah.
And if you're anyway alone and you're drinking and you're feeling down, you go even further down. Right? So the problem is, it starts something as a social activity. Eventually became this. And so like history is so fascinating when you think about how things became what they
I think
are.
History is something that is a subject that is so interesting, but taught the wrong way.
Taught in the worst. I think because we find the most boring things to talk about. And not really talking about, because there is, history is all about how things evolved. It's not about facts. Facts you can all find. Like today you can Google any fact you want. But to get that smaller nuancing, one thing, how did this become? Right? How did, like there was this thing I read the other day about potatoes.
Okay.
Potatoes, and I forget who the king was. So potatoes actually went through a rebranding exercise, which is why they're so prevalent.
Okay.
Is that there was a point of time, if I remember right, where there was a scarcity of bread, and people didn't eat potatoes because they just look like potatoes. Right? So there's a specific.
I love how you say.
Yeah, they don't look fat. Like any vegetable, look at potato. I'm like, this does not look like something you really want to eat. So what the king did, and I forget which king this was,
Yeah.
in which country, but basically made the potato the national vegetable, the royal vegetable.
I think I've heard this. I think I've heard
And
this.
then in his kingdom planted it in his
Yeah.
palace ke paas,
Yeah.
and people started to steal it. Some royal thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then suddenly the bread shortage didn't, because they found something else to eat. So they found something else to supplement starch from bread to this. So it's like, I might have gotten this story slightly mixed up, but that's the essence
Yeah,
was
I
that
think
you
I've read
rebranded
this.
it.
Yeah, I think I've read this.
For that. And so there's so many things like these,
Yeah.
and sometimes you go after stories like these and you have chance encounters which you enjoy more, right? One of my favorite stories, and actually one of the first, my advent into really like looking at watches, and I know I've said watches a few times, but
No, no, it's
since
okay, go
we're on that thread, I'll continue.
Yeah.
There was a particular kind of Casio watch I always liked. So nice.
Okay.
So there's that steel Casio watch
Yeah,
you find. Now you find it easily on Amazon everywhere
Yeah.
else, but you never got it.
Okay.
Maybe like 6-7 years ago. So I was on holiday in Spain, and I'm walking by a storefront, and I see this watch in the storefront. I'm like, okay, let me go buy it and walk in. I walk inside. There is a song from Happy New Year playing.
The Hindi
wala
Bollywood
Happy
movie
New Year.
Happy New Year.
हाँ.
Acha, interesting.
One Desi uncle walks and saying, Indian. I'm like, हाँ, आप कहाँ से हो? मैं बॉम्बे से हूँ, मैं भी बॉम्बे से हूँ. Like, ये watch मिलेगा. So we had a long chat about it, but turns out, imagine, this is a watch I looked for 3 years. Couldn't find.
Yeah.
And I eventually found it in another country, in a store owned by an Indian from the same city which I live in.
Wow.
With a
What are the chances?
with a Farah Khan movie song running in the background. Like, you can't, like, that is a story. You
I
only
think
get the
common
story
interest, yeah.
when you go looking for things to find.
I think when you don't essentially look for things is when you find them the most.
Yeah.
In fact, when you spoke about reading and spoke about trivia and history, I read a lot about marketing psychology. And I find it very interesting when brands, use certain psychology to sort of, increase their sales. And I was reading about the trash can strategy by Red Bull, if you know. And there was this strategy by Domino's called paving for pizza. Fantastic strategies. And I was like, this is brilliant. Like, what is the insight that the founder must have found? And then they decided to dig in, go down the rabbit hole, as you say, and then find out information and then use that to, say, increase sales for their brand. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
In fact, there's this cereals marketing strategy that I read about. I'll just quickly mention it.
Yeah, it's the variety one.
No, it's about the mascot on the cereal boxes.
Yeah.
So you see like chocos and stuff, right? So the mascot on the cereal boxes, the boxes are kept on the top of the shelf. And the mascot is looking downwards at an angle of 9.6 degrees.
So it looks like
so as to make that connection with the kid. Because the cereal is for the kid.
That is so interesting.
So, and it's placed on top of the shelf. So the kid would then look like as if the mascot is making eye contact with the kid, which prompts the kid to tell their parents, "Okay, I want to have that cereal box." Whereas the cereals for adults is kept at an average height of say 5'7", 5'8" to about 5'10", so as to make direct eye contact with the adult.
Yeah, and you look at the benefits more than any mascot.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. I read it and I was like, this is brilliant.
No, it's
even with the trash can strategy of Red Bull, I don't know if you know, but so in late 1980s, 89, 90s, Red Bull was trying to capture their market in the UK, right? And London was supposed to be their biggest market. So what they did is they were marketing it as an energy drink. Ki yaar, haan, theek hai, this is an energy drink. It gives you wings and all of that. So in order to and there were a lot of energy drinks in the market. People were consuming everything but Red Bull, right? And they were like, haan, theek hai, now we want to make a mark and we want people to consume just Red Bull. They went outside clubs, bars, universities, restaurants, and they crushed their Red Bull cans and filled the dustbins. Just to give a perception
which people are drinking
that this is the most consumed drink. It's called the popularity illusion. So when you go and read about it, it says that, and this led to their increase in market share to about 46%. it could be 44, 48, but around about more than 40%. And this is fantastic how they used sort of psychology, and I was reading about it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy.
It's one of the things which I don't know why we're not taught enough of is just psychology when you're growing up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because it plays such a key part in everything you do.
Yeah.
Because you're not taught. Let's think of the stuff we're not taught when we're in school, right? We're not taught social emotional learning, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
You're not taught how to interact with people. You're not taught how to understand yourself, like have your own like self-awareness and like awareness of others. You're not allowed, not taught how to deal with conflict.
Yeah.
You're not taught how to build confidence through yourself and not look for external validation. And these are all like, if you dig into psychology, you can actually learn very simple methods to work on each of these. How to deal with anxiety, how to deal with stuff that goes on in your own head. And in a similar way, it's this, right? If you knew these, you come up with more innovations, like you spoke of, because for you to progress in life and and partly progress in work, but also progress in life, if you understand how human connections happen, if you understand how human emotions flow,
right,
there's so much innovation to be done. There's so much you can actually achieve. But that's something which we kind of under-index on. We don't focus on enough. We focus. This is not a career skill. No? So
इसमें career थोड़ी बनेगा. मतलब
psychology में क्या?
Psychology में क्या? कि लोगों से बात करोगे क्या?
Correct.
उससे पैसे कमाओगे क्या तुम?
So that's the problem. So it's just that, like, if we focus enough on, and I we dig into this aspect a lot lately. It's called social emotional learning. That is almost the core of becoming a more like well-rounded and functioning human being than anything else, because that is, that makes you more confident, makes you stronger, makes you look at other people in a slightly different way, makes you look at yourself also, have like self-assuredness and everything else, and you're generally a more confident person, and you're more like secure, because you're like, it's like when you talk to Sid Warrior, no? I was watching a clip. I think he went on one of those comedy specials. And he was asked, like, because you're a neurologist, when you're even having an argument, are you thinking like a neurologist? He said it's damn irritating because I'm two people in my head. One person was actually angry. The other person is like, the other person was like, nahi yaar, this is why your amygdala was doing this. But it's so true. I wish that was part of like science that we learned.
Interesting. Varun, what's the most expensive thing you own?
What's the most expensive thing I own? I own a house.
You own a house.
I own my own house in Bombay, which makes it the most expensive.
All right then. All right.
But and which is also like, but the funny part is this, right? I remember when I was buying the house, and someone I was working with, just generally who I work with on investing money, etc. And he said that buying a house is never buying a house you live in is never a financial decision. It's an emotional
decision, for sure.
But for me, it was also a tax-saving decision. That's a whole different point, because that kind of helped as well. But in general, that's the most expensive thing I own. I enjoy I enjoy nice things. They don't necessarily have to be the most expensive things. So I have a problem of eating chicky. I will keep buying different kinds of chicky of Dunzo and Swiggy, and I would eat it. But I don't.
You should have told us.
You don't need to give me like Lindt chocolate or some really like expensive. I'm like, give me chicky or give me like regular eclairs. I'm very happy in life.
Eclairs is fantastic. I don't know where.
And as a
have
kid,
they disappeared?
No.
Are they still in the market?
So here's the thing. When you're kids, it was someone's birthday, you'd get someone come with eclairs.
Yeah.
Now you can buy the full packet. Online, which I do, and I hide it at home, and occasionally.
Does the wife know about it?
Yeah. Pooja knows all my spots. Pooja is so used to me doing this that she's like, I'm just ignoring this. She's like, only don't give the kids too much of it.
Makes sense.
Which is so for me, it's more of a treat. I'm the person who has the most amount of chocolate at home.
You're the kid at home.
I'm the kid at home. But so it's just that like.
Does Pooja know you're a kid at home? You're the kid at home.
So I am just. So here's the thing, right? I have this very interesting split.
I love how you have insights to everything and then you start by, okay, so here's the thing.
So I have a very interesting split of how I function at home. Which is that there is a part of me which is the kid, because I will buy a toy so me and my daughter can play together. It'll be fun to do. I will have random facts about most things. I will be that person focusing, have you seen this? Watching random videos, everything else. But I'm also the person who can actually be the most, like, I don't want to use the word strict, but I can actually be the person, this is how we're going to do this. So I can flip very easily to this. And I think that's what makes it fun to be a parent.
Yeah.
Is that I don't think I want to be my kids' friends. I want to be their parent.
Okay.
Because I think that once you try to become friends with your kids, you are then trying to build an equation of a certain kind, which takes away from the point of you being a parent. You're a parent because you're helping someone grow and evolve into the right kind of human being.
Are you saying that it draws a parallel where you and your kid are at the same
you are at the same level? You are at the same level eventually.
Yeah.
And I think it's not about that. I feel what happens is that at a certain point of time, if you focus too much on being friends with your kid, your kids look to you for support. They look to you for help. They look to you for, just they need someone who has their back.
Yeah.
And that comes with a slight ledge of, it's not even authority. It's about being solid. With friends, you require a little more fluidity.
Yeah.
So the relationship changes. And you don't want to confuse it. So I have a lot of fun with my kids. And I do the most random
What are their
things.
names?
My daughter's name is Leia.
Okay.
She's almost 6 years old. My son's very young. He's 8 months old. His name's Veda.
Veda.
Yeah.
I love the name.
He's 8 months old. And but with both of them, I'll do the most fun things. With him, obviously, is too small. But I always call this a line. I'm like, I'm fun till there is this line. If you push it beyond that, that's not something you're supposed to do. We've spoken about this. So it's not like you can't do this. It's what, this is why you can't do this. Now that line, at least that's my belief.
Yeah, of course.
Becomes tougher to hold if you try to be too friend. If you try to say, I'm your friend. So I will never say I'm your friend. I'm saying I'm your father. And I don't think fathers or mothers cannot be fun without
being called like
because friend is a very broad term, and friend involves, I think friendships involve many things which are amazing, which I don't know if you need to put into the parent-child equation. I don't know how this, obviously this is a very early stages for me, it's only been 6 years, but I have found that keeping that line helps maintain so much. You also then say, okay, I don't need to know everything. I think as I get older, I'll hopefully be happier to say, I don't need to know everything, but I'm there if you really need me.
I don't think you're getting older. You're getting younger by the time.
I'm going to be 41 in a few months. 41 in a few months as this goes on.
How old do you think I am?
About 34? 33?
I look 33.
33, 34? I assume.
I'm 27.
It's the beard.
It's the beard?
It's the beard. The beard ages.
Yeah?
So I did the beard. If I shave my beard, I will look like a child.
Yeah, and I'll look 21.
See?
Yeah. But I'm happy this way. I can't go without the beard because it's...
Same. I can't neither of my children have seen me without a beard, ever.
Oh, wow. So, imagine you shave.
No chance. I'm not shaving. But I showed them a photo.
What if somebody gives you like a crore rupees to shave? No chance. Why?
Why would someone give me a crore to shave?
Just imagine, hypothetically. Of course,
is there a price to my beard?
Is there a price to your beard? Yeah.
Someone give me a crore to shave my beard, I will strongly consider it. I'm looking at the camera and saying this.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone's going to give me a crore to shave. But I just genuinely enjoy the beard. I think. So the beard for me is, again, it's I call my beard it's like my pet. You take care of it, you groom it, you spend time looking through endless. I've gone through years of figuring ways to kind of trim and shave and everything else around it, till I finally found one system which took me years to come to it. So now I have a very quick system to do it, but I maintain my beard the way it is. So do I really want to tamper with that and go through the process
and then have that again, have that exact same design and shape and outlook and
tough one.
It's a task.
Yeah, which is why I don't even go to a salon to get my beard. I get a haircut occasionally. I haven't got a haircut in a bit now. But I think the one time I let someone in a salon or a barbershop really touch my beard, I was like,
do you have a specific barber who you go to? or is it like
changes?
Because if you have a different one, I'd say you're pretty risky in life.
I have phases. So I have phases with different barbers.
Yeah.
So growing up, and I also grew up like there is something about the old schoolness of things which I really miss, right? So we had a family barber. Like the guy who cut my dad's hair, cut my hair. And we would sit in a stool outside. We would come home.
Yeah.
Sit in a stool outside. You come sit in shorts, nothing else on. You'd cut your hair, go inside, take a bath at home, right? It's like house call. Like it's like what you get now on whatever urban company.
Yeah.
Happened when I was like a kid, right? But I think in Bombay for me it's gone through phases. There was a time when my hair was really whacked out and crazy. So that time I would go to like all these really funky salons and get like I had like a mullet at one point of time. And then my hairstyles got very sober. And at that point, I would just go to like anything near my house. I actually had a buzz for a long time. And then in recent times, I've just let it grow out. And so now it's literally, there's a salon right opposite my house. I go there. I found one guy there who basically doesn't meddle with my hair too much, follows instructions. I'm like, I'll go to you.
Makes sense. Because I've tried different barbers and
that's a bad idea. I had one guy who really like, I thought I'll experiment once. Like 6 months ago.
Always a bad idea.
Terrible idea. I said, don't cut. I have my hair gone longer.
Yeah, somehow.
I said, don't cut the length. And he put it down and he cut it. I'm like, ek kaam bola tha.
And I want to say this on camera, that barbers don't know the word don't.
They think you mean do.
Yeah. They don't know the word don't. अगर मैं बोलूँगा कि भैया ये मत करना, they don't hear the word मत. They think ये करना. So when I say don't cut, they'll cut. They're like, bhaiya, medium and also this is a very subjective thing.
I also had a phase, by the way, where I sit online on YouTube and Pinterest and just watch videos of barbers cutting people's hair.
Wow.
It's fascinating. Have you gone down that YouTube rabbit hole of barber channels?
No, I've not.
It's damn fascinating because they talk about different kinds of beard styles. They'll have like makeover. Like one guy who's never cut his hair in some 30 years has come and they'll cut his hair. I'm like, ye kya video hai? I want to watch this.
It's great content.
Yeah. So these guys basically they're barbers who are running their own channels, and I was like, okay, also like business thought process. How do they make money? And like, okay, there's YouTube money of course, but they some of them have made their own products now. So the guy who does a lot of beard stuff has done beard oil.
Yeah.
Or has a sponsor. Or making like beard combs and like scissors and stuff. So there's a YouTuber called Daniel Schaffer, right?
Yeah.
He's not made as many videos in recent times, but he makes his product videos of products. So what you see, that great shot of a Pepsi can, or like the commercial where the beans are falling for a coffee commercial.
Yeah.
He shoots them at home, and he shows you how he shoots them.
Okay.
And it is fascinating because these are like, and for someone who's worked in production, those are like high budget things to shoot.
Yeah.
He does it at home with like basic rigs and like techniques, and it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
So I used to like really binge, and I would send it to, and that time I was still at Glitch, so I would send it to my team and say, see, can we just do this?
Yeah.
And so we would even take some of the techniques from him and do it for like smaller social stuff. There's this amazing show on Netflix called Ugly Delicious. Okay. So Ugly Delicious is hosted by David Chang. David Chang is the chef behind Momofuku and a bunch of the others. And he basically, every episode is about a food which is, so most food is supposed to look delicious.
Yeah.
But some of it doesn't look that great. So like look at like a fried rice or look at like a pizza. And he takes dishes which are, or tacos, and what doesn't look visually great.
Yeah.
And taps into the history of that dish and places in which you get it. Like fried rice came out of leftovers in America. In China, it's very different in how we get in America. Bad time to talk about this conversation because it's like afternoon and we're like, I'm like, I feel like eating fried rice now. But you would have yesterday's,
don't worry.
The best way to make fried rice is yesterday's leftover refrigerated rice mixed with cut vegetables and some amount of, like, let's say, meat or chicken or anything else, or just maybe just the vegetables. You put it on a wok and with some oil and you toss it up. See how quickly you can make it if just this description. But the fact is, yesterday's leftovers, because when there was a period of time in America when just like the standard of living versus what you would make was lower.
Right.
So a lot of Asian communities who came in started to make this as a way as, okay, this is food we can make. Like it's still yesterday's rice. We just have to cut some vegetables and add into it, and maybe add some meat into it. But now for me, that's it's not a food show, it's a history lesson.
It's a history show, yeah.
Getting cultural context. And so in that episode, there's a bunch of people talking about fried rice, and they go across, they go to China, they eat it in the US, they do everywhere else. And I'm thinking, yaar, how did I grow up eating like I think chili chicken is an Indian dish. Chili chicken is not I have an uncle. I know he doesn't watch podcasts, so I can talk about it. Who went to China and ordered chicken fried rice and chili chicken. And he came back and he said it wasn't as good as the chili chicken fried rice we get in India. I agree with him. Because I think Indian Chinese food is the best Chinese food because it's like the most spicy one. Indian chili, like chicken 65 does not exist outside India. It's supposedly a Chinese dish. It's not. It's called chicken 65 because if I remember right, I think it was the number 65 in a menu. Like how menu had used to have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I think this was a dish which was number 65 in someone's menu, if I remember right, if my history recollection is right. What is that like? You got to think about, but it's just like I'm fascinated by these things.
How do you reach these channels, or how do you reach to a point where you find such trivia? Because it's fantastic.
I'm thankful to the algorithms. Because I'll happen to find one video.
Yeah, because it's good. It's actually good. The algorithm is, in this case, it's actually so good that it,
it's
curates it in a way where, ठीक है, चलो वरुण को ये पसंद है.
I forgot who said this on Twitter a while ago. This is like almost like 4 or 5 years ago, and that's when I started to do this. Is that you can train the algorithm.
Of course you can.
You can train it to give you the kind of content you want.
So because the algorithm is working in a way based on your interest.
Yeah.
So you say today you like beach videos. Yeah. Tomorrow you like dog videos. Yeah. Third day you like, say, cooking videos. Yeah. Fourth day you like
just hold up the mic and say, I'm looking for a sofa.
Yeah.
5 times. aa
jayega feed pe.
But it's and as long as you train it for the right reasons. And occasionally let it also get confused. Like, imagine suddenly you watch a video which has no connection to what you normally watch. The algorithm gets confused.
Yeah.
And starts to again throw you like a little more general content.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I mean, I spend a lot of time doing that. I also find, like, just for general information gathering, I have found a bunch of apps which give me like starting points. Like Austin Kleon talks about this, right? He calls it the content family tree.
Okay.
He says, let's say you're reading someone's book. You find it interesting. See who that person is talking about in that book. If it's a non-fiction book, right? Referencing someone. Find what content they have. What book do they have? Do they have a podcast?
Oh, yeah. He
so eventually from there you go down, like, it's in his, I think it's in Steal Like Artist. Like you go down and then you find so many more. Like I found Dave Chang because he did an episode of something with Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
And because I follow Seth Rogen's content in general, what he shares, because he makes pottery videos for a person who makes movies and things. He has an entire pottery business. He makes his own like ashtrays and like random stuff. That's his entire Instagram content is that. So I'm like, I was watching that and this came up and I remember Dave Chang from a while ago on some other podcast or something I'd seen him on. So I went to the show and realized he has 2 shows on Netflix.
Yeah.
One which is called Breakfast, Lunch and Dinner, where he goes with the celebrity guests to one part of the world.
Right.
And they just have breakfast, lunch and dinner together and they explore that city.
Okay.
And I went down that. So sometimes you'll come across these things also when you notice, okay, maybe this character in this non-fiction, and I watch a lot of non-fiction, so like this person seems interesting. What else have they done?
Yeah.
And then that just takes you. Just go. I mean, I use the word rabbit hole too much, but that rabbit hole is the best thing to do.
Interesting. I think this has been like a learning session or like a learning
on finding your rabbit hole.
Yeah, on finding your rabbit hole. Ki yaar, you find your thing and stick to it. Couple of more questions before we wrap this up, Varun. I wrote like
the reason why people don't do the rabbit hole thing too much, right?
Yeah.
Is that everything you do, we all, how is it going to help my career? How is it going to help my...
Okay. So thank you for bringing
not
this
everything
up.
you enjoy has to be monetized.
Exactly. Yeah. One for the kitchen, one for the soul.
Yeah.
Period.
Exactly. And
Period.
That's the way to do it. That's what, I mean, we shouldn't forget that a lot of these things were hobbies.
Yeah.
Like we all had like hobbies we weren't necessarily good at.
Thank you so much for putting this out, Varun.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'll give an example. I'm a terrible surfer. I've surfed all of 3 times. I've fallen on my face most times in those 3 times of surfing. I still look forward to, I want to go do it again.
Yeah, because...
So much fun.
Because I'm so glad you put this out in the open, Because, and I always say this, that when I started off with content, my interest with content grew as and when I kept doing it. A. B. I started because I was enjoying it. Now when it is a full-time thing, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that there are things that you do for the fun of it. There are things that you do for the business of it. But when your passion becomes a profession, and when you start monetizing your passion, that is like an ideal spot to be in.
But then also the fun might go away.
Exactly. So when you're converting your passion into a profession, you're like, "Ha, yaar, ye to crazy hai. I'm doing what I love every single day and making money out of it. Fantastic, great, all of that." But then you start losing the craft, and you start losing the fun out of it. Say I want to do photography.
Yeah.
I want to be on the streets and just randomly start clicking people having pani puri, or people having, just stepping out of an auto, or maybe just standing and catching an auto. And I do this every single day of my life, for example. And once money starts kicking in, you're like, हाँ अब इसको ऐसे देखते हैं, इससे पैसा मिलेगा, even though the craft is gone.
Yeah.
So I think it's a bit of a tussle where you sort of figure out your passion with profession, and then
Which is why I always say that you shouldn't quit your job as soon as you decide to be a creator.
Yeah, same.
Because you put pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
There are enough people who being able to do both, and those who even if you look at some of the creators I really admire across the world, right?
Name a few.
So Ryan Holiday is someone I really admire. Right? I mean, he got me into stoicism. It's something I have deep interest in. Just it got me into philosophy in general. His primary thing is to write books. That's what he does. The content is an extension of it. It helps him kind of put the word of stoicism out there. Helps people buy his books because of it. Like I have bought every single book of his because of it. He runs a marketing business on the side which helps market books. Now he's a successful author who is bestseller, who has multiple bestsellers.
Right.
Amazing idea. I build a company, and he has an entire team which does that. So he's not hyper involved in that.
Yeah.
He runs a bookstore, but that allows him to have a physical space to house books. So, but the core of it is what he writes books. You look at someone like an MKBHD. Like I've enjoyed his tech videos for years. But at the core of it, what is he? He is someone who deeply enjoys tech and can talk about it. And he's found a way to do it. But if you ask MKBHD to do what everybody else is doing, he won't. He has such an innate style.
Yeah. And I love how Marcus does it. Because it's fantastic the way he puts it.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of people who are comparing him to a lot of other tech YouTubers, primarily from India. I'm not taking names. But Marcus has such a unique style and a template to it. It doesn't look like as if he's pushing it.
And he's an ultimate frisbee player who plays with like an actual professional team.
This I didn't know about.
Yeah, so he's actually part of so ultimate frisbee is huge in the US. There are actual leagues and people play in actual like football fields, so they play with the frisbee. He plays for a professional team as an ultimate frisbee player. He also because he's interested in cars. He started to write. I think he writes for Top Gear magazine or one of those magazines on cars. He has now started a second channel which is only focused on cars and EVs and everything else. So he's connected. He figured out right. Technology is EV and tech connect. Yeah. So he now has a separate channel. Sometimes those videos come on his main channel as well. But he has deep interest in that. But if he turned around and say, I will do everything which everybody in tech is doing, he's still talking the exact same way. He's still finding ways to not, his core essence is that he likes to talk. He's deeply interested in tech. And sometimes you never know where that leads. It could be a hobby, but if you start thinking too much about the commerce side of it, you lose what the whole point. Like if it becomes like a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Which is what many people try to move away from to become creators. So and you make this into a 9-to-5 job.
Interesting tweet I read, and I'd also put out something similar where it said, left my 9-to-5, I now work 24/7.
Yeah. So that's also what happens when you become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
When you decide to become an entrepreneur, you will 24/7. But I mean, there are more sustainable ways, is what people have realized in hindsight. But you only look at what seems to be it's that whole the grass is greener on the other side scenario, right? It's always that. It's like you never realize what you have till you start to try to make money out of it. Because like for me, I've done this. I've actually spent the last 1 week doing this, and I was like, because I'd gone through a phase, I would say last 3-4 months, because we'd kind of built a team, we'd have a studio, everything we'd produce there, we'll do everything there. So last 1 week, I'm like, I'm just make the videos from home. I've enjoyed it more. Weirdly, people seem to have enjoyed them more than the other videos I was making in the studio. And I'm like,
so Take a Pause is shot at home?
No, not the podcast itself, but the stuff I put on Instagram is shot at home. So Take a Pause is a plug and play system where we have a studio space, but again, that space also functions as workspace for the other stuff that we do. And the podcast setup is what it is.
Interesting. How did you come across, or how did you find a name for it? How did you?
So I use the word pause a lot, and it was one of those things I would keep saying.
It could even be going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Down the rabbit hole. Could be a name.
Yeah, Down the Rabbit Hole could have been. That's actually a great name for a podcast. Yeah. Could actually be an interesting one for a book as well to write.
Yeah.
But
that's an interesting book title also. Yeah. Down the Rabbit Hole.
Down the Rabbit Hole.
By Varun Dugirala.
Yes,
another bestseller.
If I write it, trust you.
First page dedicated to Deepak Parekh.
Yes, if it comes. Thank you for giving me the name. Yeah. But no, it's Take a Pause was an evolution, right? It started up as uses information, and then it was called the Varun Dugi Show. I have to give credit where it's due. It was called the Varun Dugi Show thanks to a particular person at Spotify who said, just name it after yourself if you're confused about what to call it.
Okay.
So named it after myself for a while. And
why did you change it again?
Because I felt it didn't explain what the show was about.
Yeah.
Fair what was the big realization for me is that I had to keep explaining what the show was about. And I had started to say this often, and it happened because of what I was going through in life, just in general, like headspace wise, saying I wanted to take a pause in life. Like I was on that track till COVID hit, where successful entrepreneur, sold the company, was at a very senior position, could have really stayed in the corporate world and really grown, had a global career.
Right.
And then because of COVID and just generally, we had to make changes in the business. There was genuine, even my own mental health wise, I was also not in the best space. And I really sat down and said, okay, gotta take a bit of a break and really think about what I'm doing, why am I doing it. And I've kept using the word, I'm just taking a pause and figuring things out. And it just became something I would say often, and we realized that's what the show is about. And now I finally have a one-line explanation for what Take a Pause is about, is that we're actually a show about adulting.
Okay.
Because everybody I talk to, I ask them about, about their childhood, but also ask them how they deal with the most basic things with being adults, right? So the other day I was sitting down, I'm saying, I just said it, and then everybody in the team looked at me. I'm like, that's what the show is about. Like the show about adulting. Yeah, but it's been interesting. It also opens up conversations which you won't normally have.
Interesting. I have so many questions written here, and I'm glad I asked none of these because
which always happens, no?
Which always happens, and I'm so glad it happened because that's the format of the show, which is there's no format.
Yeah.
And if I keep a format, I keep like 10 questions here for Varun Talk. We'll probably do a repeat episode where I want your take on stoicism, want your take on perspective. But a couple of questions before we wrap this up. How does marriage change a person?
Marriage teaches you how to value partnership. Because for me, marriage is all about that. It's about a partnership. It's about finding someone who you build the world you want with, and it also changes you. It also makes you realize one clear thing, that till the time you get married, you're doing everything for yourself. Once you get married, you're doing everything for the unit. Again, you're not doing it for the other person. You're doing it for the unit you are building together. So for me and Pooja, it was initially just me and her, and our dog, and then eventually became me and her.
What's your dog's name?
So our oldest dog, his name is Trip. Pooja had him for a year before we got married, and now he's like 11 years old. We've been married 10 years. So Trip's still with us. He's a nice, I call him Tauji half the time, because he's an old man walking around the house and sleeping everywhere. And we have another dog whose name is Lulu, who we also had now for a good 7-8 years now. So she's also been there. And so as as Leah got added in and now Veda got added in, it's that unit.
Yeah.
And there is the extensions of that unit, which is, let's say, my parents and Pooja's family, and but eventually whatever you do is for the unit. You're not doing it as much for yourself as for the unit, and because you are a core part of it, you're not ignoring yourself. It's not like selfless scenario. Like it's a very selfish thing also, because you want that, and I think that true marriage is about that. Is that you're working for that, you're building that together, and we thankfully have that, because we're very clear about. It's not about roles. It's about what we are working towards. We always wanted a certain kind of life. We have that, and we work to kind of maintain, kind of elevate that. We are not overtly like, let's be social all the time. Let's go out and party. Let's go to like, spend like on like random luxurious things. But we will spend on things we value the most. We'll spend on travel. We'll spend on experiences for ourselves as a family. And once in a while we'll say, oh, this, you really like this one thing. You know it's expensive, but
it's okay.
One of us will get for you. Or you can just buy it yourself. And someone, I forgot who said this. He said that, when you have a marriage and a partnership is when you can enjoy being silent in the room together. You can be doing your own thing, be in the same room.
I've heard this a lot, and I go by the same logic. I'm not married yet, but soon to be, could be. I don't know. But I truly believe that you need to be comfortable in silence. Even if you need not have that innate pressure to speak just because you're sitting with somebody. And if you don't feel that pressure, then I think, and also I think unfiltered conversations, safe space, no judgment, a friend first and then a partner. I don't know, I've not been married yet, so I would not be able to say, but I think...
I agree with you on all these things. And I also think is you need to enjoy doing ordinary things together.
Yeah.
Because you are going to have ordinary days. Like you wake up in the morning, you do the same sequence of things. Right? So there are many things we both enjoyed doing together. Like we both enjoy. Like I am now a foodie because of her. Like Pooja is a major foodie. So we've enjoyed, like when we travel, we know where, what kind of food we're going to try. It's not about the restaurants, about, okay, these are the dishes we should try, or these are the experiences. I'll try and find some like random things we could maybe do. And now with the kids, as Leah's gotten older, she has things about why can't we do this? Okay, let's go find that. But it's about that. You got to... Ordinary is not a bad thing. I've said this, I think, before.
This is great.
Because fantastic. We all like going after like no, but eventually what do you want? You want to live in a nice house. You don't want to worry about money as much as you will have to work for it. I think you should not work for money your entire life, because otherwise you don't have something to really do. But you got to... your needs are very basic. You shouldn't stop yourself from enjoying nice things, from wanting things, because they give you momentary points of joy. But long-term happiness will only come from like building that, like the basic stuff.
Doing simple things together, right? Like let's not overcomplicate things. Do you have a weird fan moment or some fan story or say a crazy fan story? I want you to leave with.
So I've met a lot of people.
Story.
So I've met a lot of people from Bollywood because I've worked that beat.
Do you remember we've met before?
Where did we meet before? I very distinctly know we met before. I'm trying to think of where we met before.
I know the exact moment. I don't remember the date. It was Spotify created it. And you just entered, and it was in the afternoon.
So hot.
It was so hot, and that's why we left. I was like, yaar, abhi kya karna hai? Kuch karna hi nahi hai. So we thought we leave. And then I see you enter. I was like, haan, theek hai. I know him. I've seen his content. I've seen his work. I'll just speak to him for a while. And then, of course, you were bombarded with people around and you were speaking. And I remember I was like, yeah, hi, Varun. I'm Deepak. I've met you before. I've seen your content before. I don't know. They just like wanted to have a chat. But then you were bombarded with people. I was like, chalo, anyway, I'll probably... that was my first interaction.
I clearly remember it. But
Yeah,
if I had a moment,
yeah.
so I would take the Amitabh Bachchan story away because I already said it. Because that was for me like
Share something fun. Share something interesting or a fun story that happened with you, maybe as a creator or as an entrepreneur, or you know, weird fan moment that happened. कुछ ऐसे मसाला.
Fan is it like I met someone who likes my content, or someone who, or I met someone who I'm a fan of?
No, not you who met somebody who met you who's a fan of your work. Yeah.
Acha, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not. I think it's the most interesting one I did, and I found it interesting, is I was once invited to a book club Zoom call, and I got onto the Zoom call, and they were all much older. Like I think everybody on that Zoom call was 55 plus.
Okay.
And they'd all read my book.
Okay.
And they were all discussing it.
Okay.
And I'm in this call. I'm like, it was like, you don't know what the feeling is. You're like, one second, I wrote a book. But these are like people in their 60s.
Yeah.
Who have all read your book, who have questions on it.
Right.
I was sitting on that Zoom call for 1 hour, and I was just feeling so like, there were so many thoughts about just generally what it was.
Yeah.
And I just found that to be the most I remember that because it was not the audience I wrote for, but they all had such strong points and they had very specific questions about specific things.
They must have a different outlook on the book.
I was like so fascinated by just that entire conversation, because you would assume, because when I wrote it, I assumed it would be for young people, like people in their like maybe early 20s, late, maybe 18-ish. But I've seen that so many people above a certain age. But for me, that call was the most interesting. The most interesting moment I had when I spoke to someone who was famous is actually an episode with Manan Sheila.
Okay.
It was remote. She was in Switzerland. And for 1 hour, it was just me in my house on a Zoom call with Manan Sheila on the other side. It was the most... it's a very riveting conversation when the other person is of a certain headspace.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be like a popular person moment for me. I was like... So I really had to think of how that conversation went. Because... you don't want to seem like you're, because you can't go one way or the other. But like I recollect the entire chat, and at the end of it, she even said, if you come to Switzerland, please come to my house. We'll share a meal together. And I was like,
sweet.
But yeah, so the fan moment was that. I can't get over that call because I thought they were super sweet and they'd all read the book and it was just like fun.
Anyway, thank you so much, Varun.
It's
been a pleasure. Your final thoughts on this camera. No. And I have not paid Varun to say anything. No. Whatever he says. So just
it was a chill more than an hour because it was so much fun to talk about so many things. I haven't spoken about most of these things before.
Fantastic.
And you got a lot of that out from me. So
fantastic.
So make sure, if you guys have already seen the entire episode, make sure you watch the episode. If you haven't seen the episode yet, watch the episode.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I'm going to link Varun's socials in the description. Go check it out. Subscribe to his channel. Follow him on Instagram, Twitter, Tinder, Bumble if he's on.
Never been on Tinder and Bumble. I'm pre-Tinder generation.
Pre-Tinder.
Never used the apps.
I am this generation, but I'm still not on Tinder and Bumble.
I've never used.
Anyway, just wanted to put it out there. Just so that a lot of frauds and scams happening, guys. Just beware, I'm not on these apps. But yeah, if you watch this episode till now, I'm assuming आपके पास बहुत time है और आपने पूरा episode देख लिया एक बार में. So great, fantastic. Thank you for watching. Hope you had a chill hour. And stay tuned for more. Thank you. Cheers.